Penn State added some more former Iowa State players out of the transfer portal, one of which is a really sneaky good wide receiver. They're also targeting a former Ohio State running back.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. As we're going to go over the latest developments, this is a live show, so obviously, accordingly, put your thoughts in the live chat, questions, comments, thoughts, criticisms that you might have of Penn State's transfer portal outlook. I've seen people that are not too thrilled with the way this has gone. But it's great to be here, as always. But Penn State getting a sneaky good wide receiver in that cluster of Iowa State transfers, and that is Chase Sowell. Chase Sowell, I'm sure that people know this name, are familiar with this name, if you've been following along and kind of anticipating some of those Iowa State moves as well. But Sowell was one of those players that Penn State was definitely going to be targeting all along from the beginning. All right. He was a starter a season ago, arguably the 1A, 1B on a given day. So Penn State actually landed both of Iowa State's leading wide receivers, honestly, all of their leading pass catchers from a season ago. And then you couple that with Koby Howard. Okay. So Chase Sowell it is the complete wide receiver from what I've seen at Iowa State. And I'm eager to see him continue to develop because now he's really becoming a veteran. Okay, so he's going to be one of those leaders in the wide receiver room. I like the idea of him and Koby Howard being complementary wide receivers on the boundary. And Chase Sowell can do a lot of things well, okay? No pun on his name, but as I think of it, Chase Sowell does things so well, right? Okay. But Sowell, what does he do? So he is that receiver that you can throw quick hitters to. You can throw the quick passes. He creates separation. That's a lot of because cornerbacks have to account for his ability to go over the top. The things that impress me the most, I'll give you three keys to Chase Sowell as a receiver. One, the spectacular catch. The guy is going to make highlight reel types of catches, diving, jumping, soaring into the air, winning the jump ball one-on-one. He is going to make the spectacular reception. The next thing is just how quickly he's able to get open in these quick hitter type of situations. Slants, 10 yards and in, 10 yards and out, because you have to factor in, okay, this guy can hurt us over the top. He can be a deep threat for Rocco Becht. But then it gets more difficult to cover him when you add all these other weapons around Rocco Becht. The offensive line is going to be the best that Rocco Becht has had. So you give him more time. You give him time. Not that. And again, the first thing I point out is that he's going to make the spectacular catch. He's also going to make the quick hitter. And it's the separation that he creates above all else. So Sowell could easily be Penn State's leading wide receiver this upcoming season. And one of the better pickups for them in the transfer portal thus far. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. So, right, he's going to be a red zone target. He's going to be a deep threat. It's the complete game that he offers. This isn't somebody that's boxed in and say, well, you can only line him up in the slot and he's only good on quick slants. No, I saw the quick slants. I saw the intermediate routes. I saw the deep routes. It is truly a complete game for Sowell. And it's the reason why 24/7. So maybe he's not maybe I shouldn't frame him as sneaky good. He's just good. Okay. Let's hope that he doesn't sneak up on anybody, that he comes in with the expectations like that, because he was a top 15 wide receiver in the portal, according to 24/7. But Rocco Becht does spread the football out quite a bit. Okay, Brett Eskildsen comes over from Iowa State. He's going to be a speedy wide receiver for them, but it's coupling all the other weapons together. Koby Howard, as I mentioned, your starting trio in theory right now, unless Penn State goes after another wide receiver, which I would hope so, right? They might be targeting more than just one former Ohio State player. We'll get to that in a second. But between Sowell, Koby Howard, Brett Eskildsen, and then you add the tight ends. You add Andrew Rapplier. You add Ben Bramer. You add Gabe Burkle. The offensive line is going to be steady. You have potentially another high upside running back coming in, but you add Carson Hansen in to go along with Quentin Martin. I am good with that dynamic duo at running back, but just because you want Penn State to always have the best resources at each position, I'm hoping they land the former Ohio State running back, who we will talk about in just a moment, and also talk about the possibility of landing a different Ohio State prospect as well. So this sets up really nicely. It gives Rocco Becht somebody who he's familiar with. Okay, so it goes along with all the other things there. Again, he's familiar and knows what Ben Bramer can give you. He has chemistry there. He knows what Gabe Burkle is also going to do at tight end. But Brett Eskildsen, Chase Sowell, all bring over that chemistry, that familiarity, and the upside skill sets. Really impressed with the tape that I saw from Chase Sowell. And a lot of other teams were going to try to target him. Okay, this wasn't just... Don't assume that this was just an easy slam dunk just because it's an Iowa State player that's affiliated with Matt Campbell, that this was going to be easy to do. This was not. He was a top 15 wide receiver in the portal. Other teams were targeting him. But Sowell ends up in Happy Valley. He's officially committed. One of my favorite transfer portal commitments, regardless of affiliation. This has nothing to do with, it's Iowa State to Penn State. Of course you're going to hype this up. No. If he was coming over from any school, I'd say you put on the highlights, you watch the footage and you say, he can do a lot of things. He has, like I said, it's not just a one-dimensional, he's just simply a deep threat. He's a speedster. He just gets behind the secondary. It's how he does it and the plays. I don't think I've seen a receiver like Sowell in terms of that spectacular, the spectacular catchability since Parker Washington. That is saying something. Penn State has been a void of that highlight reel type of receiver, maybe because the opportunities didn't present themselves, right? So we never knew. But Beck's going to throw the ball to Chase Sowell in those moments. When he sees one-on-one coverage, he's going to throw it up to Sowell because he trusts him. And he knows that Sowell is going to come down with the football. Because it happened tons of times. Last season in 2024, he's been consistent for he was consistent at East Carolina, then he transferred over to Iowa State, and he was consistent for Iowa State. But I'm eager to see him now that he has another season under his belt. He gets another year of experience. He's going to be alongside his quarterback again with Rocco Becht. He's familiar with the offense, right? Going into that system again. And he's going to be able to help out Koby Howard too. These are the players that you want to surround Koby Howard and honestly, Tyser Denmark, because I still feel like Tyser Denmark is in those developmental stages as a wide receiver. These are positive influences that you want around these guys. Sowell's going to make Koby Howard better. Koby Howard's going to make Sowell better. Same thing with Tyser Denmark. You get my point here. Like the setup what Penn State's going for. They're also targeting a couple of other Ohio State players. We're going to go through all the latest portal developments here as we continue with our thoughts on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays have become appointment viewing when it comes to NBA basketball and the all-new NBA happy hour over on FanDuel. FanDuel is giving fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. Well, what is NBA Happy Hour? It's your official pregame. It's a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action even starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. All you got to do is open up the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, and it's going to bring something new. You got boosts, you got bonuses, you got surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing's perfect. It's right before the games. It's right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to your Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That is NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Also want to give a shout out to the Everydayer Club, the all new Everydayer Club here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can check the links down below or go to lockedonnittanylions.supercast.com. What does a member of the Everydayer Club get? You get ad-free feeds for podcasts here on Locked On Nittany Lions. So you can listen to this podcast ad-free. You also get an invitation to a members-only Discord server that talks all things Penn State, talks all things Locked On Podcast Network, because there's tons of different podcasts to follow. Again, that is the all-new Everydayer Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Okay, so I'll jump in and out of the live chat because I also want to bring you all the updates, all of the latest here. And those Ohio State players that I'm talking about, one is James Peoples, who confirmed himself is actually on campus right now as we speak here on a Monday night. So that, and then we'll monitor, because Penn State wants to get involved here, but we'll see what ultimately happens. Noah Rogers, former Ohio State wide receiver that was highly touted coming out of high school. I mean, both these guys are. I'll talk about James Peoples a little more since he is actually on campus. But Penn State's looking to add a third running back, which I find intriguing because I'm totally on board with Quentin Martin and Carson Hansen as that 1-2 punch, but you can never have enough depth. You can never have enough depth. And it didn't work out for James Peoples. Peoples was actually trending to be the starting running back or be in a co-starter situation. He was going to be the home run threat, and CJ Donaldson was going to be that. I'm not an Ohio State expert. I won't claim to be, but I think this was how the setup was supposed to go. And Peoples was supposed to be the lead all-purpose back. He can catch. He can be your speed threat. He's going to be your big play threat. And then Donaldson was supposed to wear defenses down. Well, that never materialized, as we saw Bo Jackson, no relation, unless I'm totally confused, no relation to the Bo Jackson, ended up taking over for Ohio State. But this isn't an Ohio State show. If you get Peoples, again, it builds out the depth chart. And Peoples, I think, has definitely, I don't think this is a hot take or anything that's controversial. Peoples would have the highest ceiling potentially between Martin and Carson Hansen. I mean, I think Martin would have the opportunity to beg to differ, because remember, Martin was a former top 100 player in his own right. But getting Peoples in the backfield, Iowa State is not going to be afraid to split the carries. In 2024, they did this, where they had 3 running backs. So you thought Penn State had a system of a dynamic duo. Hey, get ready to meet potentially the dynamic trio, where 3 running backs are going to be utilized and potentially get 150 carries a season. That might be the idea here and what Matt Campbell's going for. And when you have the resources, when you can do it, why not? You don't have to limit yourself to 2 running backs. You can absolutely go and get a third. So you should want James Peoples. Penn State was also targeting Mekhi Frazier, but reporting from On3 and 24/7, that's been a roller coaster. It's been up and down, saying that, okay, Mekhi Frazier, I forget who the reporter was, but one person said this was trending in favor for the Nittany Lions. Then he took a visit to Auburn, and now everything's changed. So he's the former Michigan State running back. So if you had any aspirations that, they're going to get Mekhi Frazier, probably not going to happen. So I see that's why Penn State's trying to, because you see how important visits are. Getting James Peoples on campus is half the battle. You see how important Mekhi Frazier takes a visit to Auburn, and now he's supposedly not going to take any more visits, and that Auburn's basically the destination here, is what we're anticipating. Visits are key. You want to try to get, if somebody doesn't commit after they leave, that's concerning. It just is. It's the nature of the transfer portal game. You get somebody on campus for a visit, you basically want to get them to commit in that moment. You don't want them to take another visit. So if they leave without a commitment, probably not a good sign. Probably not a good sign. All right, let's jump back and forth in between the live chat, and I'll give you some updates kind of based on what everybody's looking for here. As far as, I have some other names that we can discuss as well. But Virginia Tech fans, am I right? What are they doing? What are they doing? I think Iowa State fans probably have been a little more disgruntled here. I guess I've been seeing more Iowa State fans try to jab at Penn State than I've seen Virginia Tech fans. Hey, they can be happy. They got a starting quarterback. They got some prospects with upside. They got tons to be happy about. Good for them. I have no ill feelings for anybody that goes to Virginia Tech. If they see an opportunity to play, an opportunity to start, they're familiar with James Franklin, so be it. Nittany Lion Steve says college football playoff in 2026. That's a possibility. I am not ruling that out for Penn State, and I've already given my thoughts on that. Easy schedule, a team that has the good from Penn State from last season, the good from Iowa State, combining that together, better coaches. Again, Danton Lynn, Matt Campbell, Terry Smith, Danton Lynn, all just being able to add really good coaches in either a coordinator or an assistant caliber role. That's coaching matters. I just put a post out slightly earlier because I was curious. Okay, how would you rank the rosters based on high school recruiting for the college football playoff? Indiana has the 11th best roster out of the 12 teams that were in the playoff this season. They have no former 5-stars. They had a 10% blue chip ratio. Coaching and development matters. Georgia had the best roster and lost to an Ole Miss team that lost its head coach. But coaching matters. Pete Golden got the most out of that team, right? So it's not the end all be all. Penn State needs to get players that fit the system, that fit the depth chart, that fit the vision of what Matt Campbell and this coaching staff want to do. I'd rather have players that fit and can maximize their skill sets rather than just getting, okay, talent, but where do they fit in? What do they do well that you want them to do with what Penn State has for its objectives? So we might get James Peoples. We very well could. We could see him end up at Penn State. Hey, he's visiting. He's visiting. That's half the battle. Jeremiah Cooper, PSU lean. I have not seen a lot, whether reports or anything else, and maybe I'm missing something, but I have not seen a ton of intel or anything else. Not really hearing Jeremiah Cooper's name because Penn State's pretty solid at defensive back right now. They added Patton at safety today from Iowa State. They've retained how many cornerbacks? Guys that will contribute a ton. I'm focused on basically the running back spot, defensive line, and linebacker at this point, as far as needs go for Penn State. You could also maybe say, again, maybe even throw in wide receiver as well, because Penn State's still targeting wide receivers. But an offensive line, I mean, basically quarterback is settled. Starting offensive line is settled, but you want to get depth. You can never have enough offensive linemen because of the attrition of a college football season. Tight end is definitely set. You don't need any more tight ends unless they're going to go 14 personnel. They did really well. Taylor Mauser, the offensive coordinator, is going to double as the tight ends coach. Phenomenal job there with the way that he was able to re-recruit Andrew Rapplier. Brian Kordovich, who was a part of Penn State's team this past season, and then go and get Gabe Burkle and Ben Bramer. Also, Finn Furmanek, who got some snaps here and there, is a veteran tight end for Penn State. State College native, actually. Speaking of which, they're trying to get another State College native back to Penn State, and that's Deontay Sheffy. I saw Sheffy play in high school. He ended up going to Syracuse, decommitted. He's somebody that, okay, you get him in the running back room. He's not to the caliber of James Peoples. I wouldn't expect him to play a lot of snaps initially, but that's somebody you want, a local player with talent back at Penn State. Penn State was recruiting him initially, but I wasn't, I was surprised that he never ended up at Penn State. So maybe it's because Franklin and company didn't give him a ton of attention. The Penn State Nittany Lion Cyclones. I mean, people can make all the jokes that they want, right? Iowa State had a lot of talented players that were going to follow one way or another. But it's also, I think people neglect to realize how many players that Matt Campbell was able to retain on this current Penn State team. That was the impressive part of this, the surprising part of this. is that it wasn't just a complete turnover. You could be selective with who was coming over from Iowa State. You retained an entire secondary. You retained the entire secondary from Penn State. You were able to get Tony Rojas back. You retained some key defensive linemen. Let's not gloss over the fact that Penn State's roster was the core of this, and they're filling in the gaps with Iowa State. It's not the other way around. It wasn't, this is the entire Iowa State roster, and then some select Penn State players here and there. No. The bulk of the offensive line. Okay, quarterback's one thing, right? You got Rocco Becht and Alex Mansky. But you retain Quentin Martin, Koby Howard, Tyser Denmark, Andrew Rapplier, Cooper Cousins, Anthony Donko. All those guys on the offensive side of the football that can be key contributors. Max Granville, Yvonne Kamaju on defense, on the defensive line. Tony Rojas at linebacker. Amari Campbell absolutely stinks. I would have wanted him back for Penn State. That's one of the better dynamic duos in the Big Ten, all of the country, honestly. And then you retain the entire secondary practice. You could build a starting secondary with what Penn State was able to retain between Darius Dixon, Davian Collins, Jameer Joseph, Dejon Lane. And then you're filling in the gaps with Iowa State players. Other than quarterback, that's how it's been thus far. Oh, I should also throw a former 5-star in there in Malachi Goodman. So the jokes that, oh, Penn State's just Iowa State 2.0, it's not exactly that. It's not exactly to that extent. Big fan of the show. Appreciate that, Jim. Really do. Any word on Jeremiah Cooper? We need one of the two top Iowa State cornerbacks. Yes, because Jontez Williams ended up committing to USC. You don't need it. It'd be great. It'd be great to get Jeremiah Cooper. But like I said, the secondary is already mostly intact. You would want Jeremiah Cooper, but I'm not going to sit back and say, and hopefully it does happen. Maybe it does happen. But like I said, it's been it's kind of the same thing with Jontez Williams. There hasn't been a ton of articles, right? Ongoing conversations about it. His name's just kind of popping up here and there as, oh, this is somebody that was at Iowa State and could potentially come over to Penn State. You got Jamison Patton already. You added Marcus Neal at safety, right? Again, filling in the gaps. Penn State has its starting secondary for the most part. You would want Jeremiah Cooper, but it is not necessarily the end-all be-all because your secondary is in a really good spot regardless. And that's a testament to Terry Smith and Dion Broomfield being the cornerbacks and safeties coaches at this point in time. And of course, Terry Smith is going to be the associate head coach as well, but focus on the cornerbacks. So no wonder that a bunch of cornerbacks stuck around, right? All right, we got another break. We'll continue to talk about the latest with the transfer portal, other players to watch for that Penn State should be targeting, because now they're going to go outside of Iowa State. They got to get more than just Iowa State players. We'll talk about that next here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like college football season, the tailgates, the packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, now that part used to be frustrating. You had long queues, you had logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You can open up the Game Time app, look at upcoming college football games, look at upcoming sporting events, choose your favorite team, and you'll be surprised how fast it was to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. And probably the best feature, you get to see your point of view ahead of time, the view from your seat for those selected tickets. So you know exactly what you're getting before you actually go to buy. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets and sporting event tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right. So Penn State is kind of all over the place with who they are going to be trying to target, what they want to do. My focus is primarily on the defensive line because I'm surprised this one kind of flew under the radar. Randy Adarica jumped into the transfer portal. Nobody said anything. Nobody mentioned it. I had Brian Smith reach out to me and he said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on Randy Adarica going into the transfer portal?" And I said, I haven't seen anything about Adarica going into the portal. He's out of Florida. He's from the state of Florida. So that's why Brian Smith is, he knows this player well. He scouted him a ton and met with him and he's spoken with him. And this was somebody that we were really excited about joining Penn State when he committed in the last high school recruiting cycle. And somebody that probably could have done well in Danton Lynn's defense. Well, he's going to go into the portal. So long story short, 24/7 has him listed in the transfer portal. I still no articles or updates anywhere else. So that's just surprising to me why that's the case there. Long story short, overall, Penn State needs defensive linemen, defensive tackles, edge defenders, right? These are all guys that Penn State's got to get tons of them. I'll start with somebody that's been linked to Penn State right from the beginning of the transfer portal. Again, that is outside of the Penn State, Iowa State bubble. Alexander McPherson, edge defender out of Colorado, somebody that could be a two-deep player. You need depth, you need starters. That's really what it boils down to. It's anybody and everybody is going to be a useful addition to Penn State. Cody Sigler out of Arkansas State, defensive tackle. It looks like he's got a visit set for Penn State, but also Florida State, Auburn, and Oklahoma. So he's got a visit set up, but it doesn't necessarily, I'm going over targets. I'm going over players that Penn State is connected to or wants, regardless of where they actually are in the battle for these recruitments. I want to go back to just how crazy the transfer portal is overall, because it's basically speed dating. Okay. You jump into the portal, which is open for what, 12 days? And you have to find, and there's no other second transfer portal window. This is it. You got to figure out if this player is good. You got to figure out if they are a good fit, if they are a good culture fit, right? Not just from a X's and O's standpoint, but are they going to fit in with the team chemistry? And that's the chance that you're taking with a lot of these players. So that's why you're kind of seeing Iowa State players just flow into Penn State. And it's going to take some time, probably going into next week, with any player that's not connected to Iowa State, because they are meeting Matt Campbell and these assistant coaches for the first time. Zion Chapman, another defensive lineman out of Florida International. He previously was at Lackawanna College, and we know how well Lackawanna College players have done at Penn State. So he's got an official visit set up for tomorrow. Oklahoma State is also targeting him. Don't have his name off the top of my head. The Northwestern defensive end, because Penn State actually hired Northwestern's defensive line coach late last night. And I'm blanking on the name for the Northwestern defensive end, but it seemed like everybody was ready for this player to commit, to flip to Penn State almost immediately as a do not contact tag going into the transfer portal. And now it looks like Texas A&M is going to be the leader in this. Antu Saka. I hope I'm saying that right. Antu Saka, Northwestern defensive end, who arguably he and Max Granville, I think, would easily be the best pass rushers on the team. The stats are fairly limited for being at Northwestern because he's being double teamed. The attention, the game plan is all around him. This would, you put him in a supporting cast that has to factor in, okay, you have Kamaju at any point in time. You have Granville, as I've mentioned. You just have to account for other studs on the defense. I mean, you could even throw Tony Rojas into the mix there, right? And then a player like Saka gets one-on-one opportunities. I mean, he was already successful at Northwestern, which is why you see schools like Texas A&M immediately trying to get his attention out of the transfer portal. So visits, again, are key. Is he setting up a visit? If he's not, that's concerning. So don't just assume. This is to the people, that the fans, and it's not to be disrespectful, but just, hey, be more aware of the visits as opposed to, oh, the connections, right? He's connected to this assistant coach. Surely he'll end up at Penn State. No, not necessarily. The visits are the evidence. That is the telltale sign of what's going to happen. Why aren't Lynn and Malloy bringing in any USC or UCLA transfers? Well, USC has a lot of money. So that is one, as we'll go back into the live chat here. USC is not going to let a lot of its players just walk away. Lynn was also not a primary recruiter. There is one, again, blanking on the name. I don't have him listed in my show. I have my show notes prepared for today. There is a UCLA defensive lineman that is visiting for Penn State, but I'm blanking on his name. So that is one. But if you're questioning, okay, why don't Lynn and Malloy have basically kind of like Iowa State, maybe half a dozen players lined up, 3 from USC, three from UCLA? It's because Lynn and Malloy weren't, as defensive coordinators. That's kind of like saying, oh, why didn't Jim Knowles bring over a ton of players from Ohio State? They weren't primary recruiters. Position coaches are the ones that are going to be able to flip a lot of those players. So Lynn has his connections. Malloy does as well. They're probably going to get 1 to 2 players. It's not going to be, because the position coaches, that's why you see, oh, Terry Smith stays behind. Look at how many defensive backs did as well. That's why you have a starting secondary, because if Terry Smith went to Virginia Tech or anywhere else, I don't think Darius Dixon stays behind. I don't think Jameer Joseph does. Davian Collins. None of those guys stick around in Happy Valley if it isn't for Terry Smith. Any interest in Jamarian Harkless, defensive tackle from Purdue? Absolutely. You got me. You had me at defensive tackle. 6'3", 345 pounds. Yes, because Penn State has an absolute need for nose tackle. They are going to be running more odd man fronts this upcoming season. That is a staple in D'Antlin's defense. I mean, it's a staple of what Matt Campbell's been doing, but part of that had to do with the Big 12 and the competition and the depth, the player personnel. They're going to run more. Yeah, I peek over to the live chat. Jeremiah Smith. Yeah. No, we'll keep up with nose tackles here. Nose tackle is going to be extremely important. I am not necessarily looking for a superstar, as great as that would be. I'm looking for somebody that is capable. I'm looking for someone that can allow Penn State the flexibility to run more 3-man fronts, because it is going to be to the benefit of Penn State to be able to cycle between a 4-2-5 and then a 3-3-5 and then a 3-4 and then a 4-3. There is power in that. There is strategy in that. In order to run 3-man fronts, you need more size. You need guys that are going to be listed at 325 at a minimum, right? This is at a minimum. You need players that are strictly there because they can eat space. They can take on double teams. I'm not looking for a guy. And who remembers Ndamukong Suh? I can't believe I have to preface it that way, because he played in the late 2000s and he's been retired out of the NFL for quite some time. But Suh was that player that could take on double and triple teams, that took over a game still, and was arguably one of the best defensive players that I ever watched in my time. And I'm not even 30 yet. So I hate that I have to preface it that way. But as great of having a player like Suh would be for Penn State's defense, I'm just looking for someone that can take on double teams and free up Tony Rojas, Max Granville, anybody, Ivan Kamaju, Marcus Neal out of the safety spot to come up and make plays. That is the point of a nose tackle. That is the point of putting a 350-pound man in the middle of the defense to do just that. Clog the middle and let the skilled guys take over. Let the skilled guys make plays. This one I like. So we go from Jeremiah Smith to a more realistic one. Thank you. What about Rico Scott from Alabama? He is a Harrisburg kid. The only development I have here is that, well, Noah Pauley followed him on social media. Would he want to come to Penn State, right? Was the disconnect James Franklin and the previous staff? Is he going to be interested in one? I mean, he's an hour from Penn State. Make a ton of sense. It didn't work out at Alabama. Why don't you come home? Okay. So yes, that is absolutely somebody that you want in the rotation. Again, I fully believe in Noah Polley as a developer. He took a 2-star high school prospect in Jaden Higgins and turned him into a second-round pick in last year's NFL draft. So I fully believe in Coach Polley's ability to develop receivers. The position of need is defensive line, particularly so they can open up the defensive playbook, nose tackle, defensive tackle in particular, but just defensive line overall. Edge defenders, pass rushers, run stuffers, I don't care, defensive linemen. And then linebacker. Secondary is good. You still want offensive linemen, but offensive line has a starting foundation. They have their starters. You're looking for depth. Tight end's good. Quarterback's good. Running backs, James Peoples isn't a need. He's a want. Wide receiver starting to settle, right? Wide receiver, Penn State kind of always needs wide receivers at this point in time. So it's basically down to, yeah, we're on the same page. Monster defensive tackles. And when we say monster in size, you would like a superstar. You would, but I'm just looking for depth. I'm just looking for guys that can do their job. They are capable and they help elevate the defense because they do the dirty work. They do the gritty work. I guess final thing we'll cap off here, because I'm actually getting ready to record a show with the transfer portal expert himself, Brian Smith, which will air tomorrow. Let's send off the show before I let you all go here. The players that are the latest to announce leaving Penn State to go to, so I mentioned Randy Adarica is in the portal. At least that's our understanding here. Nobody else thought it was a good idea to report it. Okay, so be it. Offensive line prospect, tight end in high school, offensive lineman in college. Brady O'Hara is going into the portal from Penn State. What is the Penn State to North Carolina pipeline? Anybody make any sense of that? I don't understand why defensive linemen just all flow to Bill Belichick in North Carolina. But Jalen Harvey, who I was expecting to end up at Virginia Tech or South Carolina, because that's where Deion Barnes is going to North Carolina. Okay, so he ends up with Bill Belichick. Smith Vilbert went there. I really don't get. And then a bunch of, 4 or 5 commitments from the class of 2026 ended up at North Carolina too that were originally committed to Penn State. I don't understand it, but okay. Bill Belichick has strong influence over former Penn State players. Elliot Washington finds himself in a familiar situation, committing to Clemson and Tom Allen. Okay, so he sees himself succeeding in Tom Allen's defense again. Former 4-star defensive lineman, defensive end, Daniel Jennings commits to Virginia Tech. Matt Henderson and Ethan Grunkemeyer. Also, Matt Henderson is a tight end. We know who Ethan Grunkemeyer is. Both commit to Virginia Tech. It's not official for Grunkemeyer, but it is expected. So those are the latest updates overall as far as former Penn State players go, landing at their new spots. And we're going to keep you updated all along the way. So if you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any of these conversations. We're going to have live updates. We're going to have recorded updates, all about the portal, how it's all going to work for Penn State, and so much more. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm your host as always. Thank you so much for joining me on a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions for all coverage around your favorite Penn State sports teams. Keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.